Hello world, this is JWP, J Ward Primo Beats, coming to you live from my bedroom. Check me out on YouTube at JWP Tube, Twitch, JWP Stream, Facebook, JWP Meta, Patreon, JWP Patreon, and Discord, link in description. I'll be continuing to look at the Visual VST/I programming book. So I do believe this will be chapter 2. Designing VST effects in SynthEdit. Meet the family of VST effects. This chapter examines the different types of VST effects, reviewing the ins and outs of creating all common signal processors. Beginning with the basics, it describes how to assemble plugins featuring different parameters and application possibilities. Many tips and much inspiration for fine-tuning plugs await. So let's get to it. Kicking off a VST effect project. A general rule for both instruments and effects: a main container in the structure view must hold an effect before you can save it as a VST plugin. Every container comprises one or more I/O modules that pipe signal and data flows in and out. The number of channels hinges on the number of inputs and outputs. For example, a main container with one input and one output creates a mono-to-mono VST plugin. A container with one input and two outputs is a mono-to-stereo effect. A container with two inputs and two outputs is a stereo-to-stereo effect. The registered version of SynthEdit gives more inputs and outputs to juggle, letting you configure stereo sidechains, say 2 times 2 inputs, surround plugins, 5+1 channels, multiple outputs, and so forth. The VST host allowing. Cooking up a simple filter plugin. Create and open a container in the structure window. Insert a Moog filter, insert filters, and connect the I/O module's spare pin to the filter signal pin. You could connect the filter's output pin to the I/O mod spare pin, but for an uncluttered setup, your better bet is to create another I/O mod. Insert I/O mod for the output and drag it to the window's right edge. Now slap some controls on the filter, insert control slider. Conveniently, the slider takes on the input pin's name as you connect the two. Your structure window should look something like this. So we got figure 2.1, the structure of a simple filter. File name filter.se1. It shows a picture of an I/O mod with a signal in, or out rather, going into the mod filter signal in, and then a slider, 2 sliders, one named pitch, one named resonance, pitch plugging into Moog filters pitch, resonance plugging into Moog filters resonance, and an output, the output from the Moog filter going to another I/O mod, which is with the pin being named output. So I'm going to set that up in 1.4. Prefabs will be available on my Patreon, included with the post. So just to get started here, we're going to drop a container, and we're going to call this filter. And then we're going to head in, holding shift, double click. We're now in the new view, and we're going to go through filters and use the, looks like Moog filter here. And we want from the left I/O mod into signal. And from controls, we want 2 sliders. I'm going to plug in the first slider to pitch and the second slider to resonance. It did say that it would adopt the names, however, only the parameter is named that has become named. So we're going to name this bottom one resonance, and the top one pitch. And then we're going to bring in another I/O mod and send it out. Now, if we look at the top level, we now see we have an input and an output. I'm actually going to rename this signal to inputs. And I'm going to save that on my desktop and call that filter. Right-click the structure window and select Panel Edit to open the interface, which will be appearing on the plugin. The window's size determines the GUI size. Drag and move the sliders to the window's top left corner and adjust the window size to hold the sliders as seen in Figure 2.2. Figure 2.2, a simple filters panel window, shows a window displaying the panel view with a pitch and resonance slider. Both are set to 5. They're also horizontal or vertical sliders. So I'm going to hop into my panel view and I'm going to stick pitch and resonance sliders in to sort of reflect or to copy the image Figure 2.2. And I'm just going to shrink the window down to make it just that. Perhaps we can give it a little bit of buffer space. So we'll move the sliders down 1 and to the right 1. And we'll give it a +1 sort of padding around. As far as I know, building something this small will actually add a big black box around the side because plugins can't be that small visually, so we'll see. Now you can save the plugin. Open the file menu and select Save as VST. Enter a name, say Moog Filter. This appears in the VST host. Assign a unique 4-character ID to your plugin so the host can identify the plugin. Click OK to save the VST effect. It should be ready and waiting in your host. In Cubase SX, it looks like this. So we see a picture of a Cubase SX window. It has looks like a bypass or an on or off switch, and then another small box with a line over top of it, RW, and then a patch 1, that's likely the preset manager, and then in the window we actually have, again, the same as what was in SynthEdit. Figure 2.3, the filters GUI and host. So I'm going to open up FL Studio, and I'm going to export this. We're going to call this Moog Filter. It looks like it already has a custom name, which is fine. VST3, number of presets 64. As well, there's no preset manager, so there's not going to be any preset management. Save file first, sure. So I'm going to full screen FL Studio. I'm going to switch to FL Studio ASIO, just so it's not hogging up the audio driver. And it looks like it should have been built. It is done being built, so now I'm going to refresh my plugin list. And that might take a minute, so I'm going to move on here. Heads up, you may need to restart the host plugin or rescan the VST plugins folder for your VST to appear. You can register your plugin with the ID at the following official Steinberg site. I never knew about this. So let's take a look at this site here. Looks like it's no longer in service, which is to be expected. Register your plugin ID. Oops. So we'll see if that sort of exists. Register your VST plugin ID with Steinberg. Looks like we got 3 threads here. Something to research. However, right now I'm not too worried about it. Let's check the build now. We'll look at new, and we do in fact have the Moog filter. So we're going to bring in a 3x oscillator, 3 times oscillator, and that's under Synth Classic. And of course, there's no presets listed there. We're going to go here, and there are supposed to be presets. All and presets, channel presets. 3x oscillator. We'll go with an arpeggio, say 5. And then we're going to use the riff generator, riff machine. Slow it down a bit. That's just too low. So we're going to bring in the riff machine again, and we will reset this panel. And we'll limit it to C5 and 6. And then we'll bring in the filter. Not sure if that's even playing on stream. Probably playing through my microphone. Okay, I'll drop it on here. I do believe this is the type of filter that can be driven to distortion, so let's go ahead and push on it. Of course, I have to bring in my own tools to do that, as there's no gain on the plugin itself. So let's bring in PEQ2. And we can see here it's sort of soft clipping, I do believe. Alright, so that's a bit of a demonstration of that filter. That's also monophonic. Mono. Okay, so the next section here, doubling up for stereo. Our first module is a mono-to-mono plugin. For a stereo version, clone this setup to both the left and right channels. To this end, add another Moog filter and simply connect the input's I/O mod spare pin to the filter's signal plug and the filter's output pin to the output I/O mod spare plug pin. Recall that you may connect all inputs and outputs to the same I/O mod, but adding another one gives you a tidier setup. New inputs and output plugs appear on the container as you connect new pins to the I/O mod. The sequence in which you connect plugs fixes the order. Now connect the sliders to the signal to the second filter's pitch and resonance pins. Presto, your stereo version of the plugin should be good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm actually going to pull the output pins so they kind of stay in order. Rather, so they do stay in order. And then I'm going to copy the Moog filter and just paste it again. Connect pitch and resonance sliders that are already there. And connect another input. So we'll call this input L and input R. And then we'll connect these filters to the output, rather the I/O mod, which is our dedicated our output. So then we'll call this output left and output right. Then we will rebuild the filter, Moog filter, okay. Save first, yes. And now I won't need to scan to bring it in, as it's already in. It's already been scanned in. It's the same plugin with the same ID, so I can just drop it, and then it's now stereo. And we can determine that by using, say, for random as a tool, randomize, and then we'll randomize the pan. 100%, change the seed a couple times, bipolar, and if we look at our output, I'm not sure what's going on there. And the screen size is actually quite small, so We do have two outputs, left and right. So I do believe it has created internally two outputs. It looks like we might need to make sure that our mono use OK, our output at stereo pairs here. And we'll say mono use OK. Save file first. I got to make sure I unload it, otherwise we're going to get an error upon build. So yes, save file first, as it'll save the settings. OK. Bring it back in, and we do in fact have stereo. And we'll drive it again. Does look a little funny here though. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Of course, this is always part of building plugins, is debugging. Okay, so it looks like a resonance connected to pitch. It must have just been a miss. So it was pushing the filter high above the signal. So first debug for the filter here. Export it again, make sure we unload it. And we should have more of a low pass sounding filter. So bring it in again. There we go, we have all right. So we have figure 2.4, a stereo version of the filter. Filter underscore stereo. Okay, so that wasn't supposed to be that. Underscore stereo. Now that it's saved here, I'm going to go in and reverse everything here. So I'll just delete this, and we now have the mono version again. I'm just going to change these names. Save that, save as, and we're just going to call this one filter. All right. So in figure 2.4, our stereo version of the filter underscore .sc1, we see an IO mod with two signal outputs, one going to a Moog filter on top, signal in, and Moog filter again coming from the second signal out, again going into its signal in. The pitch slider is now connected to the pitch of both Moog filters, as well as resonance to the resonance of both Moog filters. Both Moog filters now have an output going to an IO mod with two. The names for the IO mods are signal and output, so they didn't change any of the names. Heads up. You may find building a more complex stereo version easier if you put both left and right channel setups into a container. To test your plugin in SynthEdit environment, plug an audio source into the input and wire the outputs to a sound output module, or frequency analyzer as shown in figure 2.5. Saving a plugin as a VST stores only the main container's contents. The test signal and sound out modules are not part of the plugin. So I'm not going to be looking at it, as it already is displayed here in figure 2.5. Testing the stereo filter in an SC environment, we see a picture of an oscillator which has two outputs going into a container called stereo filter. Those two inputs are called signal, and as well the two outputs are called output, and they are connected to a sound out. And the top output is connected to a frequency analyzer, and we see a picture of our response in the frequency analyzer. Fun with auto filters. Most plugins offer modulation sources, say low frequency oscillators, LFO, and envelope followers, to tweak audio parameters. This section explains how to add these to the filter using a third-party module, Dave Happ's DH Multifilter 2. Download and copy DH Multifilter 2 to any module subfolder in your SynthEdit folder, naming it modules, filters, modules, third-party filters, or something similar, imaginative. The module appears in the Insert Menu's Folder section. Create a new container and add 2 copies of DH_multifilter to its structure. Now copy a setup of similar Now configure a setup similar to the stereo filter above. Connect a list entry, insert commands list, to the filter's filter type selector plug. You can connect the same list entry to both plugs. Your structure should look like figure 2.6. Figure 2.6 shows an in-out mod or IO mod connecting its outputs named input into a DH underscore multifilter 2, which there is 2 of, to 2 inputs that they have. And then there's a vertical slider that says pitch hertz, frequency hertz, or FREQ, and then in brackets HZ, and a pipe character separating pitch, and in brackets of V, signal outgoing to frequency, which is reflected again, the naming convention there. Both filters, then we have Q and res V, going to the Q of the filters and a filter type title list type plugged into filter type. And DH multifilter has input frequency HZ, pipe pitch V, Q, pipe res V, filter type gain compensation, and filter stages. They are both have output connecting to an IO mod's output on the left side, so a separate IO mod. In this case, we're actually going to be using the, I can get the previous stereo filter to load. So change the filter, no. So up into filter, and we're going to replace the Moog filters with SV filter, which is similar, I do believe. And I'm going to be using the VA version, state var filter. And we do have similar controls now. However, our frequency hertz and pitch are actually measured in volts. So that's, again, it's pitch. So let's get rid of these Moog filters, and we're going to double to make a stereo effect here. So I'm going to copy and paste. We're going to have filter in. Rather, I'm just going to quickly reset so I don't have to do a bunch of renaming here. So we're going to go back to this, and instead of pulling the pins, I'm actually going to keep them there until I can get these SV filters plugged in, just so I don't have to go through the time of naming the outputs. So now that they're connected, I can delete these ones, and the names will stay. Move this up, move this up, and we'll connect pitch to pitch and resonance to resonance. We also bring in, under controls, we'll bring in a list entry. We'll drop that on the bottom, and we'll connect this to mode, which is similar to the DH multifilter's filter type. So we then have 4 options: low pass, high pass, band reject. And we're just going to line that up on the panel. However, we're going to wait to do anything more to the panel because we want to follow along with the book here. You must tweak some parameters before you can use multi-filters. Open the filters property window and adjust the following parameters. Set gain compensation to on. This normalizes the output signal and prevents clipping by setting the filter's resonance peak to 0 dB. We don't have gain compensation, so we might actually have not an overload, but just go beyond 0 dB. Set filter stages to 1. This feature cascades several filters, create steeper slopes, a service we can do without for the moment. It's similar to our strength here. We do have 1 stage or 2 stages. We're just going to leave it at 1 stage. Turn your attention to the input mode. Some native and third-party plugins feature variable input ranges or scales for controlling pitch. Select pitch/res to set the frequency hertz pipe character pitch V plug to 1 volt/octave mode. This ensures the Q or pipe res V plug controls resonance in a way that serves our purpose. Be sure to adjust both filters. So if we look at our state variable filter, we don't actually have that selection. If we wanted to, we could make some conversions to get pitch to turn into hertz and resonance to Q, I guess. However, However, we're not going to be worrying about that as the book says that it's already in. Volt mode, 1 volt, 2 octave. That's what we're using already. Sorry, my screen is just being a little buggery. Heads up, at times you may need several copies of a module sharing the same parameter settings. If so, configure the parameters of one module and copy it as often as you like using edit menu, copy and paste commands or keyboard shortcuts. The application also copies your settings, sparing you the tedium of mindless repetition. Time to adjust the slider modules. Open the pitch sliders properties window. Select cutoff to rename it. Note the sliders default low and high settings have changed from 0 to 10 to 10 to 20,000 volts. That's high voltage. So set it back to 0 to 10 as the input scale is 1 volt per octave with 5 volts equaling 44 hertz. Rename the resonance plug reso and set the low high values to 0 to 10 respectively. If you prefer a knob's look and feel to a sliders, simply select knob from the list. Now when you patch in a mono test signal, you should get a mono output signal. Alright, so looking at figure 2.7, we have an IO mod, again plugging into the filters, and then output mod. It doesn't look like we're supposed to look at figure 2.7 quite yet, so we will wait a moment, and I'm going to just click the vertical sliders, and we'll see that the low value and high values are correlating to the book, 0 to 10. The values currently set to 5, again, the bottom one. And the list is set to low pass right now. Installing dry, wet, and gain knobs. The balance of dry and wet signals usually calls for fine adjustment. That's what an X module does. Insert modifiers X-Mix. Add 2 copies, 1 for each channel. Connect the main input to the crossfader's input B plug and the filter's output to the A plugs. Create a new knob or copy and paste the existing knob and connect its output to crossfader's mix plug and dial in a smooth transition. Only the dry unfiltered signal passes at -5, when only the wet filtered signal passes at 5 volts. The two signals blend at values between 2 extremes, creating a phaser-like effect at high resonance settings. So now figure 2.7, I'm just going to head back up for a second. The first version was supposed to be saved as autofilter 1. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. It's very basic, so we're going to call this save as, say, autofilter, and is it 1? Page up, yeah, autofilter 1. So I'm going to go ahead and save that right to my desktop. And then we're going to move on to more of an advanced figure 2.7, installing a wet dry knob, autofilter 2.EC1. So it does show again, this is what was from figure 2.6. So we'd also have our cutoff and resonance live vertical sliders have been turned into knobs. And we now have an X-Mix coming out of both multi-filters. From the multi-filters, they get plugged into A, our dry signal, or our first input mod is plugged into B. We have a new knob called mix, which is plugged into mix, and then the X mixes go to the far left outputs of an IO mod. So we're going to bring in some X mixes. I do believe they are under modifiers. And X mix 1, X mix 2, they're not named or numbered that. I'm just calling them that. And instead of disconnecting from the state variable filter, we're going to connect them first so we don't lose our naming conventions. And then I'm just going to click the lines and delete those lines and plug the state variable filters into A of either X-Mix and then our dry signal from the IO mod on the far left into B. And then we want a new knob. We're going to change all of our vertical sliders into knobs by using the menu on the right. There is a drop down that says appearance, and we want to select knob from that as well. It asks us to call our resonance knob reso. So we're going to go ahead and copy one of those knobs, specifically the reso knob. It doesn't matter which one. It can be the filter knob. We're going to connect that to the mixes of either X-Mix And we're going to rename this knob mix to reflect the book's naming convention. And again, it's a knob. Okay, so we're going to the next page. You need a VCA, voltage controlled amplifier module. Insert modifiers VCA to adjust levels, one for each channel. Open the VCA's properties window and set response curve to decibel to control the input voltage in decibel increments. For details on VCA response curves, see the section on converting signal levels in SynthEdit manual. Heads up, third-party converter modules offer precise decibel values for adjusting levels. Some examples in this chapter use dB to voltage to this end. Go to Files AutoFilter 2 and AutoFilter 3. So we're going to go ahead and add a VCA. We don't have a diagram or figure until the next page. So it says to do it, I might as well. We'll wait. Follow up with an envelope follower. Filters often feature strange beasts called envelope followers. Sound sculptors use envelope followers to detect signals contour. They rectify and filter the incoming signal to extract the envelope curve, which provides the control voltage for compressors or auto-wah effects. Figure 2.8, a wave file in an editor with its envelope marked. SynthEdit offers you other choices for extracting a signal's envelope. Perhaps the most straightforward is to use a peak followers module. Insert modifiers peak follower. It has a signal in plug and attack and decay parameters to control the smoothing amount. These values decide how quick the envelope responds to sudden peaks. 1 volt equals 20 milliseconds. A level ADJ module lets you handily control the effect amount. Place it after the peak follower, then feed its output signal to the filter's pitch plug. It adds up incoming signals, so the envelope modulates the filter's cutoff frequency. So I'm going to go page down here. We're looking at figure 2.9. Okay, so it looks like we're missing auto filter 2.3 or auto filter 3, which apparently uses other level adjusters. So we're just going to skip over 3, and it looks like auto filter 2 is just with the X mix. So I'm going to save this as it is now. We're going to call this auto filter 2. Save. And okay. So I'm going to look at the original. Oops. Go back to full screen here. I'm going to look at the original auto filter 3 to see what we're missing. So I'm going to go save as, just so I can get into this area. And then I'm going to go open, and we're probably going to default somewhere random with the desktop. So we're going to head in here, and we want book examples. We're going to go, I believe it's filter. Now we're going to go auto filter 3, and we're going to see what we're missing here. Okay, so it doesn't look like we're missing anything, in fact. I'm not sure why. So filter 2, I imagine, is just with the X mix, right? I don't know. Yeah, it's just with the X mix. So then, I don't know why this is calling this auto filter 4. Okay, because it has the peak follower. Okay, so let's bring in our VCAs. Just going to look at 3 again here. Yeah, so VCAs. Bring in 2 VCA. They're supposed to be response decibel. So I'm just going to copy that and paste that. And then we're going to link in the inputs and outputs. As well, before I do that, I'm actually going to fix up some of the GUI on autofilter 2, because I imagine everything is kind of squashed around here. Let's see what the final of this looks like. It doesn't actually show anything. And generally in the presets, I don't believe it does actually. Yeah, it just kind of stacks everything. Oops, wrong button. Okay, so I'm going to be inventive here and just come up with my own style here. And we'll stick mix on the bottom, center, give it one sort of padding. Again, one padding. This looks like it could come out a little more. I doubt it was even snapping to grid. And the padding looks a little loose. I'll tighten it up. This looks off center. I think it doesn't matter which one it's being snapped to. It's always going to be off center. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. And there. So autofilter 2 looks a bit better. Now we're going to bring in the VCAs. This is autofilter 3. Again, we're just going to set this one to decibel and copy it. And we'll connect it to the output. And we'll bring in the inputs. Again, we connected the outputs so we don't lose the naming. And they should now both be decibel. We're going to copy the mix knob, and we're going to call that, is it volume? Yeah, volume. So I'm not sure why we shortened resonance name and then not volume. It's fine though. Connecting it up. Okay. And we'll just get things to sit on top of each other so we have a more of a cleaner looking setup. As much as it can be, there's no anchors or pylons. Pylons are anchors, however, that's fine. We're now going to move volume over. And we're going to default everything to, say, volume 10 and mix 5, just so that the filter is default active. And we're going to save as. This is filter 3. And we're going to head back to the book. All right, so we now have figure 2.9, which is autofilter 4, has the peak follower. I do believe it did explain that, so we're going to go ahead and get to that point, which will be autofilter 4. So we now have a bunch of new controls. Here we have attack, decay, and envelope mod. So we're going to bring in, it looks like, just the first one. Actually, I can determine which one it is by opening the presets. Again, it looks like we're back. Actually, I think they have the book examples right here. So we'll just take them out from here. I'll go prefabs, book examples, filter, autofilter 4. Saying changes to autofilter, no. So which one exactly is connected? It looks like both of them are connected. There's not even a division between them. Like usually there's a divide by 2. However, it just sort of plugs both of them in. So if that's what it wants, then that's what it's going to get. So let's move things. Do we need to move things over a bit? That looks so cluttered. So we'll sort of imitate that clutteredness. We'll get the peak follower happening. And it does use both signals directly in. So it's adding them together. And then we want 2 new controls. So we're going to copy and paste. And this will be attack and decay. Oops. Okay, and then we're going to rename them. Attack. And our second one, decay. Looking at the diagram again, we also have a level adjuster with a new plug or with a new control called env mod. So we're going to go ahead and bring in a new knob. We're going to call that env mod. And we're going to connect up a level adjuster, I do believe. Yeah. And our first one is the peak follower. Our second one is the, not decay, but the env mod, which didn't seem to save. All right. And then that gets connected to the frequency. And our cutoff doesn't actually disappear. Is it called cutoff in the book? It is. So we're going to call pitch cutoff. We're going to rename it. And I do believe that was probably supposed to be renamed for all of them. No, just from 2 forward. We're now at 4. All right, so then the level adjust goes to pitch. And what are we going to default as? What's already? It's set to 8 already, so everything's, it has its sort of its own defaults. And we're going to do our best to get things to line up. So it appears neater. Now I'm going to, since everything's connected in, get to reflect the book a little more. Okay, so now I'm going to set up the panel. So because this is a whole new section, I got 2 envelope modes. I guess it looks like I accidentally renamed decay. Okay, so we're going to head to the panel. And we are going to set up a new section, so to speak. We have decay, attack, and envelope mod. They don't quite seem to fit. So extend this a little more. We'll put decay on this side. And we will move them to the top, sort of to line up with cutoff and resonance. We'll move them over 1 just to give them some differentiation. And we'll line up, envelope mod in the middle, shrink it down again. And we'll give it that 1. Looks like it's already got the 1 buffer. And we'll just stretch out mode here to kind of occupy the top half. What is our biggest word? Band reject. So we'll shrink it down to fit the whole word band reject, and then we'll just center this. Doesn't want to line up, so we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. And that looks fine. Heads up. Both input plugs connect to the peak follower signal in plug, converting them to mono and taking the average of the 2 signals. You may tap the left and right channels envelope individually. To test the effect in the SynthEdit environment, you may find it necessary to load up a loop or a wave file using Wave Player. Insert input-output wave player. Fast attack and decay values may overexcite the modulation effect, causing it to spin too fast, the sound to warble, and aliasing noise in the filter. Enter 1 volt as the low attack and decay value to fix that problem. Equal to 600 milliseconds, 30 volts is fine for higher attack and decay limits. Setting the range of the envelope mod knob to -10 to 10 enables negative modulation. Negative volts invert the envelope. So that's for auto filter 4. So it looks like we are in fact including negative value here. And we'll go ahead and give it a test run. Auto filter 3, I do believe this is auto filter 4 now. Yeah. So we're going to save as auto filter 4. And just for completion's sake, we're going to step back to 3 rename pitch to cutoff, and save there, and then again step back to do, I believe, 2, and 2 is where the name pitch started to become cut off. Is it capitalized? No, it's just all one word. Okay, so we're going to move back to 4. You can go ahead and save that, and we want to get into the new view, so we're going to close that window, hold shift, double click our filter container. We are now into the filter. I'm actually going to close that and save, and then I'm going to do a build here. We're just going to build right into Moog filter again, and it's open. So that's what happens when the plugin is open, when you're trying to overwrite it. So we're just going to close that, and we're going to go OK, and it's going to ask to save changes. If we look, our whole GUI is shifted a little bit, and if we save, we're going to have to deal with that problem. So no. And generally, before we make a build, it asks us to save. Okay, so now let's go to SynthEdit, and we're going to bring in that Moog filter again. And it should have all the new switches and stuff. We'll play this riff here once around. Our volume seems to work. We also can turn sort of off the filter. It actually doesn't even seem like it's doing anything. Let's see what the problem is. Doesn't seem to be any problem. Not sure why we can't hear the filter. Maybe the attack. Okay, we'll tighten it up a bit. Say about 4. It is quite loud. Let's turn it down a bit. Can we turn off the envelope by 0? Maybe just mix it away. Oh, it's band reject. That's why. Full low pass. There, now we have something we can hear better. And we have a mix now. We can mix between the two. So at 5, we're kind of at 1,000 hertz, I believe. Let's turn up our envelope mod now. We can invert the envelope. Not really sure how much that really does. Honestly, I haven't used an auto filter all too much. High pass, band pass. And we're going to change out this riff here. Throw dice. Fit it. So as I said, it is sort of a acquired taste. The envelope mod. It definitely is a interesting sound. Oops, let's turn it off and head back to the book. So we're going to move down to the next page here. Get low by adding an LFO. An LFO is a low frequency oscillator that modulates a given parameter value at a slow rate. Though similar to an oscillator that produces audible waveforms, its frequency usually lies in the subsonic range between 0.01 Hz and 30 Hz. The most common waveforms are sine and triangle, as shown in figure 2.10. So figure 10, commonly used alpha waveform, sine and triangle, shows two graphs, one with a triangle waveform and the second one with an oscillator waveform. Use an oscillator module. Insert waveform oscillator to create an LFO in SynthEdit. Open an oscillator's properties window and you will see two modes for setting the frequency. 1 volt per octave and 1 volt per kilohertz. And 1 volt per octave mode, 5 equals 44 hertz, or 440 hertz. So that's what 5 is. 5 is, I think, A, middle A. And every 1 volt change doubles or halves the frequency. The conversion formula is frequency equals 440 times 2 exponential volts, negative 5 equals 13.75 times 2 volts. Therefore, the default 0 to 10 voltage range extends from 13.75 to 14,080 or 14,080 hertz. The formula for converting frequency to voltage is voltage equals log in brackets frequency less log in brackets 4,400, 440, over log brackets 2 plus 5 equals log frequency in brackets less log 13.75 in brackets over log 2 in brackets. Reach for your trusty calculator and confirm that 30 equals 1.1255 volts and 0.01 hertz equals negative 10.4252 volts. Connect the knob to an oscillator's pitch plug and enter these as high and low values. This affords you exponential control over the LFO rate within the range of 0.01 hertz and 30 hertz. Name this knob rate. Okay, so what are we looking at here? Our low value is negative 42, 50, 1042, 52. And our high value is 1.1255. I don't know why they didn't put them in respective order, but that's fine. All right, so that looks like what we're doing now is we're bringing in an oscillator and a knob. Doesn't say what the name of the knob is. I think rate. Name this knob rate. Name this knob rate. Okay, so let's go for waveform oscillator. This is bad practice as this is not the oscillator algorithm. This oscillator will never sleep. Just a fair note, a heads up. And this gets connected to, I'm not sure what it's supposed to be connected to. Well, let's just get it set up as far as this for now. And it said our low value is negative 10.4252. And our high value is 1.1255. I mean, we do have a Hertz converter, but we're following the book, right? So that is our rate for an LFO that's not connected to anything. An oscillator's default output range is +5 to -5. Drop a level adjust module in after the oscillator's audio out plug so you can adjust the LFO's depth. This example uses a triangle waveform selected in the properties window. So far, the LFO structure looks much like figure 211. Connect the level adjust module's output plug to the filter's pitch plug. The LFO then modulates the filter's cutoff frequency as shown in the autofilter 5.se1 prefab. So we have a picture here, figure 11, a simple LFO. It shows a knob plugging into the pitch that's named rate. The pitch that it's plugged into is an oscillator, which has its audio out plugged into a level adjust 1, level input 1, And then we have a second knob called depth, which is plugged into input 2. So we're going to go ahead and look at filter 5. Okay, I'm going to use the original sort of destination because digging in deep there is quite the depth. We'll save there. Jump in here. Okay, so we do have oscillator connecting to level adjust, connecting to both pitches. Okay, it looks like we got an extra oscillator sitting around for nothing in the prefab, so I won't be recreating that. However, let's get a modifier happening. We're going to call this level adjust. Connect that to adjust 1. We're going to copy the rate knob, plug that into input 2. We're going to call this second one depth. Okay, and then this level adjust gets connected to pitch as well. There's a lot going on there. What was it talking about the... It's just talking about the 1 volt per octave and 1 volt per kilohertz. We're not actually switching. So it does actually say if we click oscillator at the bottom here, we have frequency scale, which is 1 volt per octave or 1 volt per hertz. We're going to stay in 1 volt per octave. All right, so that's set up. That's actually now auto filter file 4, auto filter file 5. So we'll go ahead and save as. Actually, we'll set up the GUI, right? So we got a couple new knobs. We're just going to drop this one here. We're going to give it a bit of space. This one here. And then, yeah, we'll just center this again. Again, doesn't want to center, so 1, 2, 3, 4. And we now have an LFO going at 30 hertz. Let's turn it down to 1 hertz and just leave it at 30, I suppose. All right. What in fact is the default? Negative 2.977. That's fine. Supersize the signal with a stereo LFO. Figure 212, 2 sine waves with different phase. So we shows a picture of a chart with 2 sine waves out of phase with each other. So one after the other sort of thing. To conjure sumo-sized stereo effects, build an LFO for both channels and shift the 2 waveform phases. To do this, you need another oscillator with a level ADJ module. Use the same knob to control the respective rate and depth. The oscillator's phase mod plug controls the waveform's phase. Change this value for one oscillator, setting the phase mod 10 volts puts the 2 waveforms in opposite phase, so 0 to 10 volts is a good choice for range. Simply connect the knob to this plug and name it stereo. Figure 2.13 outlines the resulting structure. Now connect a level ADJ's output to plug a filter's pitch plug and the other level ADJ's output to the other filter's pitch plug. All right, a bit of a tongue twister. We do have Figure 2.13, this is what a stereo LFO looks like. It shows a picture of a knob called rate plugged into 2 oscillators pitches, a stereo knob, a knob named stereo plugged into the bottom oscillator's phase mod. And then the oscillators are both plugged into their own separate level ADJ, and a knob called depth plugged into the input 2 of those ADJs. So let us imitate that, or rather copy that. Move this down, and we're going to copy oscillator, paste, and we're going to bring in a second level ADJ, and we're going to link rate to the second oscillator, and we're going to bring in a new knob called stereo, and connect that to phase mod. This is going to be named stereo. All right. looks good. I'm not sure where they're supposed to be connected to. So let's look at the file auto filter 6. Let's go ahead and open, and it's going to take us. Okay, so we're in the right folder here. Let's go ahead and open that. Save changes to 5. No. All right, so both they're actually each connected to a different filter. Just want to make sure. There's a lot of things going on. Okay, so yes, they are connected to different filters. So let's pull the second one here, and we'll plug in the second one to the second one. The second ADJ to the second filter, and our first ADJ to the top filter. So apparently now we have sort of a stereoization effect. And this is autofilter 5. We're going to include this on the panel. Just put it after the other two filters, kind of offset in the middle. And we'll move the band or the mode again. Let's tighten this up a bit. And it looks like we actually hit the center this time. We don't have to move it, nudge it over 4. So that looks fine to me. Go ahead and close that off, and we're going to save this as autofilter 5. Or is it 6? I'm sure it's 5, right? It is 6. So what is 5 then? 5 is just the one autofilter or the one oscillator? Yeah. Okay, so we'll just call this 6. And then we'll cut all this stuff out. Fix up the... I'm missing a... I've got to reload that. I accidentally deleted the depth knob. I didn't want to delete. Let's get into the new view here. The second oscillator and the stereo knob. We'll keep the depth slider. And then we'll fix the GUI again. Just tighten it up a bit. And move this back to the middle. It doesn't sit in the middle, so we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll call this autofilter 5. All right. So let's jump back to 6 now. We have 5 in place. Adding a tempo sync LFO. Many plugins let you synchronize the LFO to the host's tempo. Though a bit tricky as well, I do believe this was supposed to be triangle only, right? Okay, so it is triangle as a default here. Not saw, so I wouldn't do much. I mean, it would, but it would be kind of stuttery. Let's jump back to 5 here, and this needs to be triangle. Let's save, and back to 6 again. Many plugins, adding a tempo sync LFO. Many plugins let you synchronize the LFO to the host's tempo. Though a bit tricky, this is not exactly rocket science. The tempo sync LFO prefab in the insert examples folder makes this chore even easier. Check out figure 2.14 to reference the structure. The tempo sync LFO bases on the BPM clock 2 module in the insert special folder. Its main purpose is to detect the host tempo and issue a pulse to kick off downbeats. The tempo out plug provides a tempo in beats per minute BPM. 1 minute comprises of 60 seconds, so dividing the tempo in BPM by 60 gives you the number of beats per second, which equals frequency in hertz. The oscillator is in 1 volt/kilohertz mode. So multiply the dividing by 1,000 to get a kilohertz result. Though I didn't set it though. It didn't tell me to set it to that. We divide 60,000 to obtain the frequency. Your division choice divides or multiplies 60,000 by a number provided by the fixed values insert controls fixed value module. The result is the frequency for the given time period. Okay, so I think that's actually part of the prefab. We have a figure 2.14, complex but not confusing, a tempo syncs LFO structure, which shows a bunch of fixed values, all plugging into a switch with a choice or list entry called divisions. And the different values are measures of time for music. So we have 4 beats, 2 beats, 1 beat. What is that? 2 to 1 beat? 1 beat, 1 bar? I'm not sure. 4 bars, maybe? They continue anyway, down to 16. And we have another fixed values plugged into a multiply coming out of the divisions, which holds 60,000. BPM clock plugged into divide, coming from multiply, plugged into divide, going into an oscillator, going out to an IO. Again, this isn't a oscillator. How would you say an oscillator algorithm? So this oscillator will likely never sleep. To whip up a stereo version of this LFO, add and insert another oscillator with the same pitch and an adjustable phase. Connect the spare plug to an oscillator's phase mod plug to create an input plug for the container. Right-click the IO mod module and select properties to rename the plug. Label lets you change the input and output plugs names. Be sure to select triangle for the oscillator's waveform and set their frequency scale to 1 volt per kilohertz. If you wish to hide the spare plug, lock it by clicking the lock icon in the toolbar or right-clicking the container and taking locked. So it's talking about this examples here. Examples, there's a tempo sync LFO. So it's already all set up. And again, this is where the 1 volt per kilohertz is set. Tempo out, 60,000, everything is ready to go there. However, I'm not sure where it wants me to plug it in. So to whip up a stereo version, I already read that. Okay, so page down. We have figure 215 going stereo with 2 oscillators. It shows a divide with its outputs going to pitch and 2 oscillators going to an IO mod out and stereo input going to the phase mod. Use the switch menu to toggle conveniently between free running oscillator and a tempo sync LFO. Connect the oscillator's audio out and the tempo sync LFO's output to the switch's spare plug. Ditto for the other channel. Be sure to do this in the same order in each setup, configuring the free running oscillator first and the tempo sync LFO second or vice versa. Connect a list entry module to both switches' choice plug. Open the first switch's property window to change the list entries. Editing labels also changes the list entries. If the list entry module connects to several list inputs, the first connected switch defines the labels in the list. Heads up, a list entry module comes in many guises, including a combo box, LED stack, labeled LED stack, selector, button stack, rotary switch, and up and down selector. Figure 2.16 gives you a glimpse of the default visuals. Bear in mind that you can skin all the selectors. So figure 0.216 or 216, a list entry module's default visuals look like this. So it shows 7 boxes. They're all choice. And the first one has a button with 2 lights, it looks like, but no labels. Then the second box shows a button with, again, 2 lights. And these ones actually have labels now. The third box shows a button with a value, no lights, it just says value. And then choice is the drop-down list, the default drop-down list. The 5th box is 2 buttons, which sort of act like a radio selection. So it's 2 boxes. One is depressed. They both have labels, value 1 and value 2. The 6th box is a rotary knob, which points to value 1 or value 2. And then the 7th is just a forward and back arrow with the value being displayed. Figure 217 maps out the final auto filter structure with a switch sitting between the free running oscillator and your tempo sync oscillator. Go to Files, Effects Filters, Auto Filter 7. All right, so that's the final iteration of this filter. Finalizing the filter. Once you have finished configuring the plug structure, it is time to design the user interface. Open the panel window and arrange knobs in a practical array. The panel group serves no other purpose but to help you lay out GUI features. Inserts controls panel group to rename, right-click and select properties and resize features. Simply drag them to the bottom right corner. Tips. Select several features by dragging the mouse or clicking modules while holding down the control key. Down. Disable edit. Snap to grid position features more precisely. Pressing Control A selects all features. Readout boxes information is not always relevant. To hide these boxes, open the sliders or knobs properties window and disable show readout. Congratulations are in order if your panel resembles figure 218. So figure 217, the whole kit and caboodle, an auto filter with an LFO and envelope follower. So we have a picture, a rather large picture of all of the pre-mentioned controls. Now we now have Tempo Sync LFO plugging into a switch, which is plugging into level adjusters, stereo plugged into different places, including the Tempo Sync LFO. And okay, let's get to building that. So we'll start with the stereo, which is already there, then Tempo Sync LFO. Okay, so we have it here. We're going to put it over here beside stereo as it to reflect the book. Now, it looks like our stereo is plugged into not only the phase mod, but the Tempo Sync LFO. So we're going to go ahead and plug that in. And what we're going to call that is stereo. And then I just want to look inside of that box to see how that's laid out, because I'm not 100% sure if there is more to it. It looks like it was actually built with a newer version. Oh, because that's the one. I'm looking at the wrong place here. So we're going to head into the original 1.1. And we're going to hop into Tempo Sync. And it does, in fact, have 2 oscillators. That's what I was looking for. One controlled by stereo. Okay, so we're going to bring in a second oscillator. This is also supposed to be triangle. Copy and paste, and we're going to connect stereo up to phase mod and our audio out there. However, let's get the pins in a better order here. So we're just going to disconnect stereo for now. We'll connect it back up again, rename it again, and we'll connect it in. The phase mod, now it should reflect exactly the same. Looks like that's the case. So now head back up to another layer, and the output goes to a switch. 2 switches. And it's called sync. Okay, so let's bring in a couple flow controllers. And that is 1 to many, many to 1, too many to 1. And let's bring in a new list. And it wants this list to be a button. So we're just going to select button, button stack, button, selector. Let's go through them here. LED stack. Labeled LED stack selector. Okay, so I think we want selector. And we want to name that on. We'll just connect it to both our choices. Now for our first choice, we have For our first choice, we have the first oscillator, which is called free running. And it is also called off, the choice. And that goes before the level adjuster. So connect this up here. And then we'll pull the pin on the level adjuster, or the patch rather, and move it past the choices. And we'll select the choice into them. Okay, actually got a little bit confused by this top one here, as it looks like it's already pinned in, but these actually need to go to the top. delete this node. Okay, so that looks right. We now want our tempo sync LFO plugged into the second choice. And we want to name them off. Right? Off and on. And because I'm more of a completionist, I'm going to name all of them properly. Okay, and then this is called sync. I'm not sure where I can name that. It says mode. Oh, because I didn't have it selected. Okay, so I'm going to change mode to sync. It looks like it's complete. Our depth is still there. Move forward a bit. All right, everything looks good. The whole kit and caboodle, an auto filter with an envelope follower. Figure 218 on auto filter panel with a default skin. So we have a picture of a panel view, and it has a bunch of grouping. I believe they're called structure group, which I'll be bringing in momentarily. Let's get zoom here. And just says it shows a picture of the panel. Nothing has readouts. It's just all knobs. First group is filter, cutoff, resonance, type, and envelope follower, attack, decay, envelope, LFO, rate, the depth, stereo, sync and division, and then output volume mix. So we're going to go ahead and copy that. And then it says, to apply a skin, you must load its files to a subfolder of the SynthEdit skins folder named whatever you want it to be named. The skin in figure 2.91 came courtesy of Vera Kinter. Select the skin in one of two ways. Open the main container's property window and select the skin from the list at the bottom, or right-click the panel window and select the skin from the skin menu. Okay. So let's go ahead and bring in some of the structure groups here. I do believe I need 4, right? 4. And this is under controls. Structure group, we want 4. So 1. Oh, that's the wrong one. It's not called structure group. It's called panel group. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Our first one is called filter. Our second one is called envelope follower, ENV follower. I think I missed a 0 or an O there. And our third group called LFO. And our fourth group is called outputs. And I don't like the way this looks here. I'm just going to extend this a bit. We'll get things sort of in order in the structure view, and then we will head to this view and get things in order here. So we're going to imitate this to exact. So first up, filter is cut off resonance. We want to remove the readouts. And then we're going to line things up a bit better here. So I want filters first. In the top left, I believe. Let's actually get things snapping to grid here. It doesn't look like they are. Okay. Yeah, just right in the top left. And our list type looks like a selector, I believe it's called, right? Okay, so then we'll just get things to fit in here. We'll give it like a 1 space buffer. Not sure if that's actually a little too loose. Let's tighten it up a bit. And this sits here. Of course, the coloring is not that great. And we'll bring this up, tighten it right up. And then our next section is the envelope follower. Which is pretty much almost touching the other panel group. And for that one, we have attack, decay, envelope. And again, we need to take away the readouts. Oops. And again, the readout. Perhaps we will copy it as well, just ENV. Totally shrunk, way small. And we'll just line up the panel group and extend the panel. In the bottom section, we have LFO. And there is a bit of a spacing there. Stretch it out. Let's get these controls out of the way just for now. We'll remove the readout where we can. And again, removing the readouts. So our rate, depth, and stereo. Divisions also looks like a selector. I'm actually going to have to get right in there. Change it to selector. It's funny it didn't update. Perhaps I have to reload. Okay. And sync on top, division on the bottom. Sort of offset a bit. Make some room. Bring it up a bit. And we'll give it a little bit of space here. And our last one is output. Not sure why mix is last, right? It's last. Follow it, I guess, and this also needs to come up one, in one. Don't have to follow it exactly, right? So make it look a little better. This looks a lot, there's a lot of space down here. Looks like everything can come down one. All right. And it looks like our boxes are actually lined up as well. So let's go ahead and do that. And these look like they're offset. These don't look like they're offset at all. Let's just bring this forward one. Tighten these up. All right. It's going to feel like they're too low, but we need to make space for this stuff. Maybe we'll just bring it down one, because we can't bring it up one. No, I wanted to bring these other ones down. goes one up one. Right, that's the same size, right? No, it's one big. I don't know why it looks funny. Just bring everything down. It's just to reflect the bottom ones because this has that space that it needs. And yeah, that looks consistent. As far as defaults, I'm just going to leave it. There's nothing to really worry about here. The point is to demonstrate. All right. So I do believe it's going to be talking about the skin now. So figure 2.19 or 19, an auto filter with a groovy custom skin, VK mini gray. So if we look at this interesting skin, is it in fact sort of reflective and I don't know, looks like sort of maybe a wood grain, a different kind of wood grain, or sort of a tack board. And it does look like these are overlapping. The text is definitely clearer as this is blue on blue is no good. In this case, I am going to bend the rules a little bit and bring in a rectangle, and we'll give it a darker blue. We'll kind of avoid that classic SynthEdit blue marble or whatever that is in the background. Red, green, blue, right? Red, green, blue. So let's actually just crank it up here to blue. And again, blue. Looks awful. It's going to be pure blue. Again, pure blue. Maybe we can make it transparent. We're going to turn this down because we do want it darker. So we're going to go about halfway. And then, oops, we'll kind of give a little bit of SynthEdit homage by making that 50% transparent. So we got sort of a gray filter. I want to turn up that transparency a bit. So we're going to push this to the back, arrange, move to the back, and then it'll still kind of bring out that old SynthEdit skin. Okay, now it's stuck back there. Let's fight with the windows here. Okay. And then darker. I feel darker. Needs to be darker. So we'll turn this up or that down. Turn this up. No, we'll turn this down. Let's try to turn this down first because we want to keep our level of transparency. So what would it be? It's about 8, right? 4 less 1, 3, because 0 counts. It looks better now. At least we can see band reject. Let's try just like 100% black. It doesn't seem like it's responding at all, really. Oop. No, what did? Yeah, it's not really responding at all. So let's go 3. Of course, we get no blue. What does that look like? As far as FF, it just looks like almost black. So let's go try 7 again. At least we got some dark blue happening. And we'll turn this down 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, or when it goes up to 10, so that would be B. And there's me splitting hairs, right? So that looks fine. I mean, we can't see the, we can still see the old wonderful marble, original SynthEdit marble. Interesting fact that these knobs are actually made in Pauvre, or Moire, Pauvre, and the Pauvre files are actually available. However, I loaded Pauvre recently, and well, not recently, a couple years back, and it still takes forever to run a Pauvre, which is normal, right? Because there's no optimization. But yeah, This was supposed to be 7 before I did all the GUI. I'm not going to make a bunch of files as it shows, there's GUI and GUI2. So 7 is 7. That's where it's going to stay. So we got this file 7. Does it called 7? 7 final in the original prefab. This was 7 without any arrangements. So yeah, I'm not going to do a separate file for the GUI. So what are we up to now? We've finished our auto filter. Page down. Of course, we were just here adding patches and presets. Yeah, I guess that's likely required, right? Preset manager. One more chore awaits before saving this filter as a VST plugin. In order to enable patches, you must insert a patch selector. Drop a patch select, insert MIDI patch select module anywhere into the structure. It automatically handles patches and presets. The panel window opens with a patch select bar at the top, serving solely to create patches. It will not appear in the final plugin. Browse the patch bank, configure different patches, and give them meaningful names. Once you have created plenty of presets for your plugin, click File, Save as VST. Heads up, 16 patches is the limit for plugins saved using the unregistered version of SynthEdit. And this is under Files, Effects, Filters, Auto Filter 8. Okay, so it looks like delay effects are next. So for the final build here, let's get the patch browser in here. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to completely build it, right? Because the new version of SynthEdit doesn't have its little window on top. We have to completely build our own patch selector. However, I'm going to imitate, I guess, the old patch selector. It's not there. It's not there. Probably because it's not here at all. So let's open 8. Why is there no 8? Oh, because this is the wrong area. Let's head here and there and filter 8. No change, no saving. Okay, can't find the skin. That's fine. That was expected. So we see we have our patch browser up here. So it looks interesting. Like that's probably the way I'm supposed to be building my patch browser, not the way I have been building it, which is fine. Look, everything here is kind of pushed at the top too. I'm not sure if I want to imitate that. I feel like mine's fine. Everything's sort of centered. It does look a lot cleaner and a lot modern. However, we do have to get this patch thingy in, the patch controller, patch automator. And I do believe we need the patch automator, right? Which now looks like that. And this comes from global input MIDI. And that'll just allow patch changes from, say, a patch changer button on a MIDI controller. And preset browser is our other component for this. Yeah. Okay. So let's get to building. Now we have, on our old one, we have a forward and back arrow. Can we imitate that? I do believe we can. Let's go with subcontrols. I do believe it's increment 3. And we got these buttons on the side. From there, we want to use, I'm going to use standard image stuff, the old school images. No vectors, no high def rescaling here. So we're keeping it, we're kicking it old school. So let's go into our designated deeply buried skin folders under C, users, public documents, SynthEdit projects, skins, and we're going to just go with default, and we want this arrow here, so we want arrow left, open, and we now have arrow left. We're going to copy paste, and again we're going to hop into the depths of the SynthEdit file folder, and we're going to arrow right, and that goes to decrement, or should it be the other way? It's the other way, right? If we're thinking logically. So we're going to go decrement and increment. Now we connect that to our preset commands list, preset name, preset category, preset choice, and item list, preset names list. All right, and then we're going to make room for it. Just going to grab everything here, move it down. that, and we change the preset. Okay, and then we change the preset again. I don't even know which one we're on. We actually have a bit of space in between. Of course there is, right? So let's go 1, 2. Okay, and is that how it looks? There's actually more space there. So we don't really need to snap it because I'll probably just throw a white bar behind there. Can't believe I have to rebuild that, right? So then we have name. So that's easily achieved by using a text entry. What about the style of writing there? I don't know. I know it's not normal. I think like the setting here, normal. We'll see. We'll connect that up to preset name. And yeah, that goes up top. So that's next in line. Stick that there, sort of. It has a background, right? Again, but like I said, I'm going to be throwing a white bar behind there. I am going to count it though. I'll count it right to the middle. How about no counting? And then we have file and a down arrow for our list. Okay. And look, there's a bunch of presets in there. Ninja bubbles or ninja blades. I don't know why my brain thought bubbles. Maybe I just wanted to find something humorous. Okay, so paste, and then I'm not sure if I have this down arrow in the original list here. There it is. Yeah, it is. Drop down. Okay. And then this goes to most down what? Commands list? What is this? What's going to happen here? How do I make this work? Pop-up menu? But I can't use an image for a pop-up menu. But that doesn't make a list. Interesting. Okay, so let's look at, I believe it's pop-up menu somewhere. Pop-up menu. And then we will connect that to choice and list. Commands, not commands, name, category, list, preset. Preset names list. And then I can't name this arrow. But like I can't name this that. And there's no way I can make that happen like that because this is sort of a click. I could leave it empty and layer it over, but it's, yeah, let's go to heading 3. I had a bit of a loss here. Okay, so this is how I normally do sort of menus or clicks. That still won't work though. Because if I, sort of transparent this, I need to trigger the menu somehow. And if there's no writing in here, then I can't trigger anything. It's momentary nothing. And then, yeah, it doesn't. I gotta reload to get the GUI to respond, and it does. Interesting. So this is just sort of there. It doesn't actually do anything, so we can go and stick it behind our ghost most down sort of thing. Okay, now it's being annoying. Let's bring it to the front, arrange, move to the front, and then we'll bring this arrange, move to the front, and then place it here. And we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. And I should be able to grab that now, which I can. We'll try to stick it in the middle here somewhere. We'll Control A to select all, and we'll see where it's sitting. It looks like, okay, so we can click it. We want to move it over. Okay. So now is it sitting in the middle? Sort of. Move it over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there we have patch 1. Okay. Then our last section is file and copy. So this will be easier because those are in fact pop-up menus. So let's copy and paste. And this is called what, file, right? So heading is file. And then we'll move that in place. I didn't even name this thing. Just hurrah. So heading 3. Of course, there's nothing there, so there's nothing to style. Heading 3, file. Okay, so that needs to actually be darker. It needs to be the black color. So we'll try normal. I can spell. No, Yeah, that'll work because, yeah, I'm putting a black border back there, right? Okay, so this is what file. What does file do? File is the commands. Load, save, load. Okay, so this has to be momentary for it to work properly. Plug this into commands, and list. And from there, it should be able to do things consecutively if it's working properly. Okay, so apparently it's working properly. If a momentary wasn't on, it would get stuck on one selection. I've just had bad experiences with using the momentary system in the past. Now we want copy system, which I believe is already included in file, right? Yeah. And there's category. However, like I've said in other videos, category isn't a user selectable function, so I prefer not to use it. Only when you're creating presets in SynthEdit can you use the category setting. So I'm going to save here because it looks like I'm getting a bit of jitter, which makes me a little anxious. So copy is already in the list. I mean, I could split things out using a bunch of functions and stuff. However, I'm not going to be going through that trouble to do that. End users are users of this preset. If they want, all to separate all the different functions, they're welcome to do so. And that's it for that. Just get a white bar back there, and we'll see how it looks. Perhaps I will sort of center file, I guess, sort of 2013 edition. But I don't want it to be a giant button that it takes up everything, so I mean, if you clicked here or here, nothing would happen, right? But if I extended this all the way, if you click there, it would. Let's give it a couple more. We'll shrink it down to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we'll center it. Does it look centered? My eyeballs can feel it centered. This is all white, right? So FF, and copy Shift or Tab rather. Tab, no tab. And paste. There. I've got this giant white box. Let's stick this up here. Shrink it down. And push it back. There. Wow. Okay. So that's done. Let's move this stuff up. And it's in. And yeah, that's how it used to look. However, we don't have any presets, right? So let's save. And then we'll migrate the presets. We can have some names in there. So first preset from the list is high reso. And it's better kind of just copy and paste between. But I mean, it's fine. I guess let's look at the numbers. Can I do that? Unlock. This is going to take a little while, so this is pretty much the end of the video. Let's go show readout true. Show readout true. So this is just me extending the video. But I might as well. I mean, I'm interested in using the weirdo auto filter. I remember like when I was a kid doing these book examples. I actually was making skins in Blender. I don't think I have any of them anymore. However, I'm not going to go through the trouble of making a bunch of skins again. It would be interesting if I just had them readily available. However, I don't because they're probably buried in an archive in my backup drives. And I'm just talking aloud to fill the cold air. Just about done here. It looks like we've got two more that are kind of hiding in the selection. Show readout true. And one more time. And yeah, so now we have the values visible. What is this one? What is that? Back in the day, SynthEdit never used to snap to grid. Oh, it did. I guess it does. There are some things that didn't though, and it drove me up the wall. Makes it so hard, like the total canvas space. is what you're visually using. Like this window here determines how big the canvas is for when you build. So like there's no snapping, right? You just got to kind of wiggle the window around and hope for, you know, the best. Or you could break out the Windows magnifier and or print screen and measure it. It was such a headache. I'm so happy that the canvas now has, you know, a snapping function. So you don't have to go overboard. Okay, so I don't believe I have to bring the readouts available here. I could have maybe just clicked everything and went properties, but that would have taken forever. And it doesn't show it there either. So in the original SynthEdit 1.1, there is no actual readout until there is a readout. So high reso. Let's get the file name in here, high reso. And my cap locks is on high reso. Like that, right? Okay. And our cutoff is 470. So from the value 470, resonance 970, which is very high. That's going to ring 470, 970, attack 564, 5.64, decay 7.63, decay 7.63, envelope 2.88. I just want to be sure. I didn't want to move that. I wanted to move this. No, stop. Okay. Envelope 2.88. 2.88. And then the bottom one, rate 1.13. Decay 7.63. Why are they different? Maybe they're just in a different, yeah, they're just in a different order. I'm trying to look over there and messing my head up. Okay, so depth 0. Rate is 1.13. Stereo 7.92. And sync on division 1B. I'm not sure exactly what that is. I can't just click it on B. Cuban B. I don't know where it went. Where did it go? Why is it not showing up in that list? Is it available? Is that a? It's not. Okay, so it looks like this was updated and now only holds some sort of value, which is annoying because now I gotta name it. Okay, 4B, 2B, 1B, 2 to 1. Not sure what that's supposed to be a measure of. 1, 1, 1/2, quarter, eighth, 12th, and 16th. All right. Done. Back to the panel. And did I say 1B, right? 1B. Done. Oh, volume mix. Mix 5, volume 10, which they already are. Are these in opposite order? Why are they the opposite order now? Okay. See, I felt this is better order, right? Also feels like tightened. It's the writing that's throwing it off. So let's push notes. Let's see, it's not good. Yeah, it's the writing throwing it off. Okay, so let's hug them then. Bring them as close to each other as they can be. This needs to come forward 1. I don't like that, but that is centered. Okay, so let's push them apart, probably back to where I started. I don't know, it just looks lopsided, but it's just because of the writing, the knobs are actually centered. And yeah, 5 and 10. Of course, none of this is all VCA, DCA, or none of this is DCA. Nothing is digital. This is all voltage. Okay, so that's done. Next preset, phaser. And then we're just going to go to the next preset and call this phaser. And from the top left, cut off 5.6. And resonance 8.1. Oh, I didn't even look at the filter on the last one. Filter type. Okay, can you note? Let's go back here. Filter type was low pass. Resonance 8.10. Last one, low pass. So where'd it go? It's there. I don't know what's going on. Oh, it's band reject. Okay, we want low pass. Everything else is set. Onto phaser. Where's phaser then? What's going on here? Why is it last? It's last now. I must have went backwards. Right? Backwards. Forward. 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 Look at how it's jumping around. It's weird. It goes from 1 to 127 to 1. Then 0, then to 2. Okay, so let's go to phaser, and we're just going to delete the name. Hopefully that deletes it from the listings. So I'm going to go patch 2, and we're actually going to check patch 0 or 1. Everything looks fine, right? No. What happened? My attack and decay. Maybe I just didn't set them. Okay, so attack 5.64. That's right. 7.63. Yeah. Envelope 2.88. The envelope is the only one that looks right. The other ones don't quite look right. How deep do these go? Whoa. 30 and 30. It's quite the depth there. So let's go high 30. I do believe it was talking about something like that. It did mention it, but it didn't say to set them. So yeah, now they should look right. But I changed them, so now I can just reload it, right? So, but then I'll have to reset everything. It's done. It's fine. Moving on. Phaser 5.6, Reso 8.10. Since I've got to use this. I don't know what's going on. Phaser. Okay, so we're going to go back to the first one, 5.6. Second one, 8.1. And then type is bandpass 1. We only have one type of bandpass here, so attack 1. Decay 1.14, which is really tight. Imagine that's going to be one of those ones that warbles. Envelope 2.8. And then on the bottom, we have a LFO rate of 1.13, which I believe is already there. Nope. And a depth of 2.57. Stereo 7.92. Sync on division 1 beat, which is already, mix 0.305. 0.03003. 305. Volume 9.18. 9.18. All right, so that is all set now. Phaser's done. I'm going to use the drop-down menu to switch to 3. They all disappear. Why did it move? Whatever. It'll eventually end up built anyway. It's a VST3 system, so yeah. So next on the list, how many are in the list, in fact? 11. So it's going to be a bit of a long video. Slow phaser. Okay, so cutoff 5.38. And resonance 3.19. I'm actually going to get the name in here. Slow phaser. And Mode. Did I get the resonance in 3.19? Mode. Notch. Which is band reject. And attack 1, which I believe, no, it's defaulting to something. Decay 1.14 again. Quite tight. Envelope 0.2. Rate negative 7.607. Negative? Yeah, negative 7.607. Depth 7.8. Stereo 7.92. Sync off. So division doesn't really matter. Sync is off. Mix 5, volume 10. So that's just cranked and cranked all the way. All right. So that's slow phaser done. We're going to move on to the next one. It's probably a jump to the bottom there. I don't know why. Patch 4. Patch 4 being hi-hat tickler. So hi-hat, we're also going to copy the name. Tickler. As if I was typing a hi-hat, I'd put a dash in the middle there. Okay, cutoff 9.04. Resonance 7.86. Type bandpass 2. However, we only have one bandpass, so it's going to have to do. Attack 1. Decay 1.14. Envelope negative 3.543. Rate 1.13. Depth 1.82. Stereo 7.92. Sync on 1 beat or 1B, whatever it is, beat or bar. Mix full blast, volume full blast. So that's the hi-hat tickler. I'm going to go ahead and save here. And we're going to move on to patch 5. Being sub bass. Cutoff 1.48. Resonance 10, so that's definitely going to ring. Low type, low pass, which it already is. Attack 1. Decay 5.51. Envelope 4.64. Rate 1.13. Depth 0. Stereo 7.92. Sync on 1B. And look, our word division is cropped. So I'm going to deal with that right now. Do so by entering the panel here. We'll just, it's also in a, I can't resize it. Right. Maybe we'll just call it div. What does it look like here? Right, it's cropped, right? Okay, we'll just call it div. Gotta reload. I'm gonna save. Why is it still saved? What did I change? Just nothing? Division. It just didn't change. I don't know what's going on. Oh, it changed the parameter name. Okay. Well, that can stay division. Well, not like that though. This is actually LFO. Tempo division tempo sync. Do this part later. And division tempo synced. Sync. LFO. And hopefully that doesn't change on me. Okay, so now it says div, which is quite a bit cleaner. Actually, got more space there now. Let's leave it. It's too bad that didn't work out properly. Something wrong there, a bug. Unescapable bug. Okay, so subbase 110 LP. 110 LP, attack 1, decay 5.51, envelope 4.64, LFO 1.13, depth 0, stereo 7.92, mix and volume. Mix is 0.93, volume max 0.093, 0.93, 0.93. Ooh, lost my numlock, I think 0.93. Okay, so that's done, and that's called subbase. No spaces. Nice. UBBASS. On to the next one. Patch 6. Auto pan. Cut off 4.99. Resonance 6.67. Type bandpass. Attack 1, decay 1.14. So attack 1, decay 1.14. Envelope 0.809. Rate negative 4298. Negative 4.298. Okay, depth 5. Stereo 10, maximum stereo. Sync off, mix 2.86. And volume 9.41. And this is called AutoPan, right? No spaces. All right. So moving on to the next one. Patch 7. Notches. Cut off 8. Resonance 1.17. 1.17 or 171? 71. 1.71. Mode notch or band reject. Attack 1. Decay 4.42. Envelope negative 6.384. Rate negative 1.953. Depth 4.18. Stereo 3.66. Sync off, mix 5, volume 10. So, oops. So everything else maxed. I'm not sure if I ruined the alignment. I guess I did. That's fine. Where it is now, that is called notches with a Z. Notches. Choose. Okay, and then on to the next one, patch 8, which is called birds. Cutoff 6.22. Resonance 10. Again, that's likely going to ring. Type bandpass 1. Or bandpass. Attack 3.97. Decay 1.68. Envelope 5.66. Rate -1, -1.811. Depth 0.89. Stereo 10. Sync off, mix 5. Volume 7.91. All right, and that's called birds, right? And on to patch 9. Through the thick of it. Base wash. Filter 4.2. Resonance 0.01. Type notch. Or band reject. Attack 3.52. Decay 4.95. Envelope 10. Rate -0.376. Depth 5.2. Stereo 7.92. Sync on 1 beat, 1B. Mix and volume both max again. So mix 5, volume 10. And that is called base wash. And to preset 10, which is called auto filter. No spaces. Cutoff 5.1. Resonance 8.8. Mode low pass, which is already there. Attack 1. Decay 1.14. Envelope 0.092. Rate 1.13. Depth 5.45. Stereo 7.77. Sync on 1B. Volume mix rather 0.5. And volume max. Save there, and we're going to move on to patch 11, the final patch called Ninja Blades. All right, cutoff 3.24. Resonance 7.4. Mode low pass, which is already there. Attack 30, decay 30. So it's pretty much a kind of useless filter or follower. Envelope 9.03. Rate 1.13. Well, we'll find out, I suppose. Depth is 0.677. Stereo 8.02. Mix 3.5. Or sync rather, with sync. Sync is on, 1B. Mix 3.5. And volume max. All right, so now that those are all in, one last step for me is going to be naming the parameters. So we'll call this filter cutoff. And we'll call this filter resonance. So nonce. And mode will actually be called filter mode, I guess. Envelope follower. Attack, we're going to put the name in front. And then envelope follower. And we're just going to copy that so I don't have to keep typing envelope follower. And then this is decay. Oops. Just going to copy envelope follower. And envelope, what is this again? Envelope follower. Envelope follower. Maybe envelope amount, we'll call it. What is it called again in the book? Its complete name. Envelope mod. So we'll call it envelope modulation. Envelope follower. Okay, then LFO rate. But we're going to put rate first rather. There's so little connections. I don't know why I'm even adding these names. So let's just go rate, depth, stereo, sync, divisions, it's already named, divisions, tempo, sync, LFO. Let's leave it at that. Divisions, mix, and volume. We're going to go back and get rid of all those extra naming conventions. So envelope modulation. Decay. Just because there's no reason to add a bunch of extra characters, as there's no repeating parameters. Filter mode is fine. Filter resonance just can be resonance. And cutoff. It's just cutoff. And we're going to jump back to the first presets. And now that everything's done, we're going to save and build. Export. I'm interested to hear some of these presets. Whoa. It's okay. Hit in here and I'll actually plug them through live and I'll throw in some headphones, I suppose. If I can find some headphones. I'm not seeing any on hand. I do, actually. That's not my gaming. I say gaming, but I never game, really. They're just sort of the first set of headphones I got that were on my Morphit list. These are the JBL A100 or something. JBL, I'm not sure they say their name. No. Anyway, so then I will switch the input here somewhere. Default outs, voice meter, let's go headphones. And it's going to be loud for me, so I'm going to turn that down. Volume warning for the stream that it's likely going to be loud for the stream as well. And I can't change that. No matter how I set it, it's always the same on the stream. And I'm going to turn on my sidechainer so that I can talk over these wonderful beats. Oof, it's still really loud for me. Just gonna do a mic check, check 1, 2, 3. Wow, that's really loud on stream. Let's put this gainer on. Still quite loud. Let's go -3. No, -6. -9. Oh, that's 6. -9. A little better. I wonder why it's so loud. Let's drop it to -12. Okay, don't turn up. Why do you do that? Alright. It's a little more reasonable and I can talk over it because it's side chained. Now let's get this filter in. And I'm going to put a limiter on the top. Why is it so loud? Let's turn this down, I guess, to start with. Oh, because I wanted to drive it, right? That's right, too. Okay, so dynamics, limiter, let's leave that on there. And it's actually kind of, I like it, I like the way it looks. We can't see that marble though, which is unfortunate. It's fine. It's too bad there wasn't a pre-driver, right? Like a volume in, because then we can drive it. But at this point, we have to use this to drive it, which is just killer. And of course, the response is, what is it called? Rotary. So you got to kind of spin the thing around. So this is called high reso. And we are driving into it. Let's try to drive harder. So we want to get some distortion happening here. Turn it off. Actually sounds better like this. So it's high reso. We've got a hi-hat tickler. So perhaps we'll pull out some hi-hats. I'm just going to use Synth Classic Citrus. And this hi-hat, I do believe there is one. There's a giant list here. Let's go. Whoa. Was there another list inside of a list or something? I don't know what just happened. Okay, so let's go tree display. And then we don't have to look at that massive list. We just go drum somewhere. Drum and hi-hat. And we'll turn this. Actually, we'll start a new pattern and we'll just do something like this, I guess. Turn on. And we use the advanced fill. Isn't there somewhere? How do I use that again? Advanced fill, right there. There's no randomizer. Oh, right there. A boring randomizer. We'll tighten it up somehow. So. Where's the envelope? Okay, it's right there. Volume. We'll go to default envelope here. Presets, envelope, default. No, presets, default. I don't see any sort of normal envelope. Flat. I don't think it's responding to it anyway. Whatever. So that's hi-hat tickler. Here's without it. Interesting. It should be a little louder for me. Moving on to the next, we have Ninja Blades. Why is that one? Yeah. filter. Let's go back to the synth here. Auto pan. Base wash. Do so by dropping this down, perhaps. Birds. Let's shift back up. So you can hear it ringing. That's mostly because it's ringing that extra stuff there. Why is it so high now? Okay. So let's turn the birds back on. So it's interesting how it's taken advantage of its ring to create a totally new sound. High reso, we've already been here. Hi-hat tickler, we already checked out. Ninja blades. It has like no filter. The filter is so deep that it barely even affects anything. Forward notches. Let's bring in some noise here, I think. We'll give a better example of this. And we'll open up the envelope a bit. So it's supposed to be a moving notch, but it's not really doing a whole lot. Okay. Phaser. Slow phaser. Sub bass. Oh, that's interesting. Again, it's doing the same thing that Birds was doing by taking advantage of the resonance and creating a completely new sound. So let's bring this back. And we'll bring this down. I believe that's pretty much it. Yeah. So that was the auto filter. And I suppose that's it for this stream, this video. Check me out on YouTube at JWP Tube, Twitch JWP Stream, Facebook JWP Meta, Patreon, JWP Patreon, and Discord. Link in description. Thanks for watching. Until next time.